In today's video, we're going to go over what a heat map is. So a Wi-Fi heat map is a visual representation of the data that you collect in terms of signal to noise ratio, RSSI, SNR. So there are many tools that you can use to perform a heat map. The popular ones out there are Airmagnet, which is now NetAlly, or there's Ekahau. Those are probably the two main popular ones out in the market. So I've been doing site surveys probably since about 1999, 2000. Before 2.4 was around, I used to do site surveys in the 900 megahertz band when the product that we used to use was a NORAN product. So I'm just going to go over how we used to do site surveys, and then I'll show you a modern kind of type of heat map using Airmagnet. So back in the day when we used to do a lot of heat maps, and today this is how I do a lot of my site surveys or my pre-planning. I'd actually look at the schematic of this warehouse, and I'll do a kind of a walkthrough, and just I would mark up a lot of the spots where I would think access points should be, depending on the visual walkthrough. Or even if I didn't do a visual walkthrough, I would look at the diagram and ask the customer the question, what kind of products do you have here? Is it steel racking? How high are the ceilings in your warehouse, and so on? So back in the day, this is what my heat map would kind of look like. And while I do my site survey or my walkthrough, I would have my access point in the ceiling, and I would just walk towards the end here. And I would do calculations and the reading on a type of unit that the customer would be using. For example, if they were using a Xeon Technologics or a Symbol Motorola RF gun, we would actually look at, they would pretty much have some kind of app that would actually look at the RSSI. It wouldn't always have the signal to noise ratio values, but it would actually look at, you'd be able to see the the RSSI values. So I would actually walk down here and record, my RSSI level was minus 70, and that was my threshold. I'd pretty much look at getting about minus 70, then I'd walk to another point, and I'd position my access point here, and I'd walk, and I'd hope that I would get around about minus 70, so I'd actually have an overlap in between here, just so we can actually have a seamless roam. So this is what a heat map looks like back in 99, 2000. Now what you can do with Airmagnet or Ekahau, you can actually do a zone plan or a predictive site survey, and I'm going to show you that in my computer in a second. So we're going to run Airmagnet Survey Professional Edition right now, and just run the project wizard. We're going to go up here in the top left, create a new project, specify a project name. I'll call it test 123. You have different options like non-GPS, GPS. Let's just click next. Now we're going to import our schematic. And you can put the unit or measurement. I always keep it in feet. If you know the floor plan dimensions, you can put that in, but I skip this, and I'll show you why. It's just a lot easier when you're on site to do this. This is going to be a commercial warehouse. AP default power, we're just going to put at 50 milliwatts. I always recommend when you're doing your site survey, set your DBM to half the power if it's possible. Most access points you can. We do a lot of Meraki site surveys, so you can specify your AP power before going into your warehouse or your environment. Test 1, 2, 3. Now it's going to ask the dimensions of the floor plan were left at defaults. Do you want to create it? Would you like to calibrate it? I'll just say yes. You want to recalibrate the site dimensions after measuring. So now what I'll do physically in the warehouse, I'm just going to stand at the end of this aisle here, and I'm just going to walk physically from here to the end. And that's roughly, most of the time it's about 8 feet. And I'm just going to actually put the actual distance, which is 8. I'm going to select recalibrate and click OK. And it automatically adjusts it for you. So the next step you want to do is actually select the AP. In Airmagnet Survey Pro, when I'm doing a site survey, I'm either going to do an active site survey, when I'm just doing one access point, getting heat maps for this particular area in the top right, or if you're doing I would say, an assessment for a customer if they're having a lot of issues in their warehouse and they want an overall glimpse of the type of coverage if there's any holes, then I'd do a passive site survey and I'd connect to one SSID, then just gather a lot of readings. But I'm just going to do a quick example of a Wi-Fi heat map. In my other videos, I can go into more detail of when to use an active site survey, passive site survey, or doing a spectrum analysis or a packet capture. So let's just do an active AP association. So I'm going to associate with this access point on this MAC address at 5 gig. And what I'm going to do is make sure that my profile is set up in Airmagnet, and I'm just going to click select start. Right now I'm using an EDI AC1750 adapter. So that adapter doesn't collect the noise and signal to noise ratio. This adapter is actually great for packet captures and Wi-Fi interference with a spectrum analyzer. Okay, great. So here we are. I just put the access point here. Now let's pretend we physically left that access point in the ceiling. You grab a scissor lift, put it in, or if you had two people, you'd have that access point, someone would be holding it on a scissor lift or on a pallet. So now what you do to create your heat map, you'd actually just walk around the warehouse, and as you go around the warehouse, just click on intervals, on spots as you go, and you could actually look to the right over here, your graph. So right now we're about, I would say, minus 50. And as you get further away from that MAC address or that access point, you're going to see it's going to start to go more towards the RSSI of about minus 70. And then my threshold for just RF scanning would pretty much be about minus 70. If it was for voice, I'd probably leave it to the mid minus 60s. And then you'd actually click stop, and that would be your first site survey report or your heat map for this specific location. And then you'd start the project wizard again and maybe put your access point here and make sure that you have an overlap of 15 to 20% depending on your customer's needs. And that is it for displaying a Wi-Fi heat map. Now we're going to get into the reports. Sorry, this is not the end. This is just collecting the raw data. So now we're going to stop it. Just give it any name. We're going to save and display. And we're going to click over here to reports. Now you'll see on the left side here, there's just a lot of information that you have here. If you actually had the adapter and you had your license to collect the RF spectrum, we collect our spectrum analysis and findings in a different tool. So I wouldn't recommend including all of this. You can include all of it to your customer, but your customer is going to want to see a site survey based on pretty much your SNR, RSSI levels. And pretty much this document, they hardly refer back to it. It's just pretty much their guarantee or their Bible or their certification of, you know, we had a site survey. So in case you get into a pointing finger match between AP vendor and client, then this is actually a nice report to have to say, hey, we've done a site survey. Here's the levels here. Here's the signal to noise ratio levels. We also did a spectrum analysis. So those are the reports that I would say that you'd mention to your customer that they must have. So back to Airmagnet, the report that I always include, or pretty much the only information that I would include in here, would be the overall coverage by either SSID or by the AP. So let's just go over here. We'll double click on it. Now it is saying no access point SSID is selected. So sorry, let me back up there. So over here, you want to make sure that you just come over here and you double click on your access point that you selected. Then you'd come over here to reports. You could actually see the path that you've taken. Just click on reports. And now we're just going to double click on this, and it's going to show us the overall coverage report by SSID, or you can do this by AP. I usually do either or, because when you're doing an active site survey for a warehouse, typically you just have one access point and you're just shifting that AP in different areas of the warehouse. So as you can see, it's got 15 pages, and I wouldn't include all this stuff in my site survey report. I would just skip over to a lot of the important information, because they don't want to see the MAC address of your access point. So, this is one important piece of the report that you should include, which is the overall signal. And because my adapter doesn't include or doesn't support the signal to noise ratio, it would be here on the next page. So that is what your Wi-Fi heat map is all about. Showing the values of your readings and your findings in terms of RSSI, signal to noise ratio, and more. So that is a Wi-Fi heat map. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to comment, like, and click that bell notification. And also let me know if you have any questions with the comments down below. Let me know what you want to see more of, whether it's active site surveys, passive site surveys. I specialize in warehouse management systems, so I've been doing this for about 17, 18 years. I focus a lot on WMS implementations, warehouse management, logistics, 3PL. 10% of the time I'm in offices and campuses, but this is kind of my bread and butter. So any questions, let me know. Till next time.